Welcome back, everyone, to the Introverted Podcast. I am your co-host, Jay Coleman.
I'm your other co-host, Steph Laffy.
And as always, just want to say thank you for joining us on this podcasting journey. It's been a little bit over a year, and I'm actually very excited today, Steph. You know why?
Me too. Why are you excited?
Because we have a great guest. I was actually. She's the host of her own podcast called the Talkative Introvert Podcast, and that was actually my very first podcast that I was a part of. So I would like to introduce my friend Meliza, the host of the Talkative Introvert Podcast.
That's a great intro. Thank you.
Thank you. I made it up on the spot.
Even better.
Wow, the Talkative Introvert. First of all, love the name because I am you, you are me. Mm-hmm. I don't stop talking once I get into a topic. So how did you come up with the name? Like, how did that evolve? Tell us all about it.
So it all started during the pandemic. I think it's one of those
I feel like I've heard that story.
Yeah, one of those pandemic hobbies, This one actually stuck around, though, not like the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I am very much an introvert. I am a homebody. I don't do big crowds very well. I don't like giant parties, and I get, overstimulated easily and socially drained easily. But if you get me a good person to talk to, I will talk your ear off. And I love having good conversations. So I was like, you know what? I want to do a podcast. And I originally wasn't going to do one, but my cousin at the time, she was like doing YouTube videos and she was getting into that, and she didn't have any ideas because we were locked down, because originally she was like going to places, to breweries and whatever. And then I was like, well, why don't we just do let's just talk about how the pandemic is impacting introverts versus extroverts. And she wasn't super keen on the idea, which is fine. And she's like, why don't you do it? Like, you start the podcast. And I was like, you know what? I will start the podcast. So,
I love that.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it started, because I think I mentioned in my earlier episodes that I am very soft spoken. Like, you could probably hear me because you're wearing headphones, but if we were in person, people can't hear me, or they I don't know. I think I just don't stand out. I'm not like a very hey, look at me kind of person. So I end up being in the background a lot. So this is my time to be in the forefront, because I'm a very opinionated person. I have a lot of thoughts. So it's my time to shine, if you will.
I love that. So are people completely mind blown when they find out that you have a podcast? Or people that don't really know you that well?
So I don't advertise it too much to people, but when people do find out, or they tell me, they're just really excited. They're like, that's really cool, or that's really awesome. I don't know. That. Yeah, I don't know if they're so much surprised, because I do talk a lot.
Right.
And I like to talk. So if you know me, then yeah. And at work, I think I put on a really good fake Meliza persona, because people are more surprised that I'm an introvert than having a podcast.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
It's funny. This is my story.
Yeah. We talk about this we talk about this all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you work in the public sector, correct, Meliza?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So so Meliza, I think we have very similar backgrounds. I worked. I actually used to live in California for 10 years. I think you're still out on the West Coast. So I lived there. We both worked in the public sector, and it's interesting because my coworkers at the time didn't believe that I was introverted, because I can be not outgoing, but I'm very quick to take initiative. I have no problem leading meetings, leading trainings, leading any sort of social activity. I can do that. So they were actually trying to argue with me, no, Jay, you're not an introvert. And I'm like, no, that's what I call work Jay. Work Jay is this persona, that I have to put on because I'm at work, and I can't just be off in the corner. I can't just ignore you or get back to you when I want. I got to actually deal with you in a professional way. So that's Work Jay, and he's very outgoing, and he's maybe not outspoken, but he's quick with a joke. Doesn't take himself seriously. But when 5 o'clock hits, Work Jay is gone, and JJ comes out and takes over for the next 3 weeks. And it's just it was funny having that discussion with my coworkers because I could see in their eyes they just like had never even just over their head, just never could consider it. So it's just refreshing funny. Hearing somebody else have that experience.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people are probably like that because surprisingly enough, a lot of people at work I realized, came to know, especially when we went into teleworking, is that they are introverted and they like working from home and they like not having to be social every single day. This week I was at a summit for work. And they had networking breaks. And then after the seminars, there's a networking event. And then there's the after party and people.
God.
Yeah. And they asked are you going to go? And I was like, absolutely not. I'm going to go home at the moment I can. And majority of them didn't stay either. So it's a smaller percentage of them are actually extroverted and they enjoy the after parties and doing all that stuff.
Right. It's so funny. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
It's so interesting to me that you guys have a work persona. You can just put the work hat on and then take it off. I feel like I just go in waves. So it doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's just my energy. So I could show up at work at 9 a.m. and be hyper as can be, but then by lunch I'm done. But then the next day, my energy levels don't start to pick up until 2 p.m. So all morning I'm dead and I just never know what I'm gonna get. So it's just I just ride a roller coaster of energy. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing or where I'm at. It just I don't know. I've tried to fix it, but it seems to be easier to just ride the wave and do my best.
Do you mind me asking what you do for a living?
Me? Yeah. I work in an import trading company. Okay. So I do project management for them. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is great because I have deadlines, and as long as I hit the deadlines in whatever way I need to, it's fine. Most of my meetings, I'm able to at least make it till I make it to the end of it, but I don't have to make all these calls or I'm not expected to be in person that much. So it's kind of nice. I get to just go with the flow. Mm-hmm. But it was more difficult when I was expected to be there every single day, working with customers and whatnot. I couldn't.
Yeah. Do you find, Steph, or do you notice there are certain times of the day where you definitely have energy?
10 to 2, I'm usually pretty high energy. Except Mondays, I usually take until 11 to warm up. And then on Fridays, my energy is starting to pick up even more around 2 just because I'm happy that I get a couple of days to just do whatever I want. It's more so I think it's the activity that I'm doing. There's so many different factors that play into it. I can't really pinpoint a time, but I do know that if you put a meeting on my calendar before 9, that's a you problem. I wish you luck.
No, I get it because that's something that.
Sorry, before 10, not before 9, before 10.
Fair enough. There you go. Yeah, that's something. I mean, it's something that I had to learn. I really had to take stock of when, maybe not energetic, but when I have that energy to deal with people. And it took years of just trying to pay attention because you're right. It's not a guarantee, but for the most part, I know that I'm kind of the same way. Anything before 10. Don't ask me, or maybe I'll show up, but don't expect me to talk. Like I'm just here. I'm here to listen. And then it's from like 10 to maybe like 12, and then I kind of get an uptick after lunch. So 1 o'clock to about 3. So that's kind of how I try to structure my interactions with people, structure anything that I know is going to be like talk heavy. I'll try to put between those times. Like if it's something that's, on my own, or I don't have to talk so much, I don't really care where it is. I am not a fan of the 4 o'clock meeting on a Friday. That shit bugs the hell out of me. But
it's rude. It's just rude. What are you doing?
Like just because you have no. But yeah, like so I try to kind of manage my energy that way. So I'm kind of curious if you to kind of have a similar like outlook.
I can't focus like before 10, definitely. Like I can't look at a spreadsheet or whatever. Usually before 10 or after 3.
Okay.
But I can I get into goofy mode like in the afternoon. So like I can have a conversation, but like it's gonna be a lot more like relationship building than it is like let's get shit done. If you want to get shit done, you got 10 to 12. Otherwise, wait till tomorrow.
I think for me, I don't know if I manage my energy very well, to be honest. Because I'm also, I don't know why, but I am in a managerial position. And unfortunately for me, I say I don't know why, because I'm like, for an introvert, why did I pick this position? But I'm in meetings all day. Like sometimes I'm in meetings as early as like 8:30, and then my last meeting will end at like 5 or something like that. And I'll get like, a couple breaks in between, but it's a lot of, and I don't know if that's just my organization because they just really love meetings or something. I don't know, but
government we'll have meetings for anything. That's what we do. We'll meet and talk about it and make committees. That's another thing. There's a committee for everything. But actually doing stuff.
I think I only really get work done maybe on Fridays because we try to do a no meeting policy on Fridays. Of course, a couple will sneak in here and there, but for the most part, we do try to not have meetings on Fridays. But there's the meeting before the meeting, there's the actual meeting, then the meeting after the meeting to discuss the meeting we just had.
Oh my god,
it's just like a lot of talking.
Yeah. I mean, I have, I don't really, so I joke around, give me a meeting during X time or whatever. I think really for me, it's just wasteful meetings where we're just talking in circles. So when I set up meetings, I make them 15 minutes or less. And I get right to the point. I say, hi, hello, how are you? Hope you're having a great day. Now let's get to it because I've only got 15 minutes. And I find that to be very effective and people really like them. I get so annoyed with the hour-long meetings or the half an hour meetings where it's 10 minutes of introductions and chit chat. No.
Yeah, the fluff. I don't like all the fluff. I don't like all the extra detail. I like straight shooters. I like people who just get to the point. But I've noticed that some people don't like that because it makes that person come off as rude or not. There's a lot of emotion involved and a lot of I don't know. People are sensitive and their feelings get involved. And it's you know what? This is an IT organization. We just need to get this done and get it implemented. We don't need to include feelings in this.
Yeah. So what I do around that is so when I schedule a 15-minute meeting, I'll chit chat with them on Teams, get that out of the way, and then say, hey, can we actually hop on a call and let's just talk it through. I just need 15 minutes of your time. And it works like a charm because I'm able to have that back and forth fun conversation. And then when we're actually on the phone, it's just focus and let's get this over with.
Teams is definitely a godsend. I love Teams because Teams has saved me from having to have those 1 hour, hour and a half meetings, because I can actually just call somebody in real time for like 1 or 2 questions and just get it out the way. You mentioned that you're in management, Melissa, and when I was in California, I was in management. That's still in management, but more of a managerial position there. And yeah, I agree. It's definitely a challenge. It can be a challenge for introverts. But I've definitely, I will say I've kind of found some cheat codes, and one of them is you definitely using Teams. The other is I actually just determine whether or not a meeting is even needed, because people are quick, particularly in the government sector, to schedule meeting for everything. So I have no problem. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, what is this meeting for? Like, I just spoke to you yesterday. What happened that didn't happen in the last 18 hours? And it'll usually be like a one-up question that I can answer in 2 minutes. So I'm like, why the hell did you put an hour-long meeting on my schedule for one question? So like I've gotten a lot better at actually determining whether meetings are needed. And it's funny. I'm the type to kind of to get to the point. So it's funny when I get stuff you said that, because like I want to get in and out. So I'll have maybe a joke or two, but I'm getting right to the point, because I don't want to be there longer than I have to. And I've actually been thankful for that, for kind of keeping the meeting short, just getting to the point. So it's interesting. Like, again, there are different approaches, but being an introvert in management is definitely an experience. It requires a different level of energy and patience, I guess, dealing with people.
Yeah.
But I also like when you said stuff about kind of having those silly conversations, because I think that's also helped me in my career, particularly with my old boss, because he is like 100% hardcore extrovert. And in my first year and a half, I don't want to say we didn't get along, but we just didn't really understand each other, because I am actually very soft spoken, and I don't talk unless I have something to say. So I'm very quiet, very reserved. And he would think that I didn't give a damn about the projects, and I'm like, nah, I'm not going to go to a 10 unless I have to. And most things aren't worthy of being on 10. And if it's at a 10, it was probably at an 8 or a 6 or a 5, and it was ignored. So if you take care of shit when it's at a lower level, is it get to a 10? Go figure. So him and I started just having talks about everything, about live sports, his background, my background, and it's cool because again, he's like old Italian guy, and I'm clearly not Italian, but him and I connected, and we became friends, and then he actually retired from one job and recruited me for my next job there. That's how close we got. So it's those conversations that you mentioned, stuff about just being silly, just talking about other things besides work, I think definitely can come into play and come in handy for introverts, because I think it shows a different side of us that other people might not really see because we're focused on work.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think the chit chat on Teams and at the water cooler and in the kitchen, and especially in person, really helps, so that you can just get right down to business when you're actually in a meeting.
Yeah. And as a manager now in this role, I've had to adjust how I talk to people and adjust how I didn't realize how important it is to, I know building relationships is important, but getting to that personal stuff is how important, and making sure, I've had to learn how to make sure I congratulate my team, thank my team, give kudos, give high fives, and those kinds of things, because I'm just do your job. just do your job, like, get things done. But like, I've had to learn the human aspect of it and how to like build morale and make sure morale is always up. And like, I've learned that being on the more managerial side, you kind of don't necessarily have to know your job very well, or like the different areas, because that's what your teams are for. But you are the people person. Like, you're the one making sure the relationships are good and that people are getting along and that people are feel like they are valued and all this stuff. It's very people centric versus when I was an analyst and doing the actual job.
Yeah. I 100% spot on. It's, you're responsible for the work of other people. And in this case, you're responsible for people, and it can definitely be hard, because there are sometimes where you feel that I can just do this myself and it be done. But you have these 10 other things that you actually need to get done, or these 10 other meetings that you have to be in. So you're right. There's definitely a human part to it. And it forces you to put trust in other people, which, at least for me, was hard because, introverts to a degree can be control freaks. I think so. So it's like, it's, so having to like give up some of that trust or give up some of that, power and trust that, you've empowered your team to do the work and do it correctly and come to you at, in enough time when there are issues. That's hard. It's definitely a challenge.
For sure. So if you don't mind, I'm going to change topics just because I'm like, I don't want to talk about work anymore. There's a lot to say about there, but I am curious, like, how did you guys meet and like decided to do the podcast?
Okay, you want me to say it? Okay.
Well, it depends. Are you going to say, "Here's my answer"? Ask Jay. Are you going to do that?
I've done that before. I said, it's a funny story, but Jay tells it better. Somebody asked us that on the podcast. It was so funny. So basically, I'll tell it this time. Maybe I'll hand it over to you. You'll never know. So basically, I commented on one of Jay's posts, I think, and then like a couple years ago, he had just he was at the beginning of selling his t-shirt line, and he messaged me. We started just chatting. We ended up collaborating on a couple of projects because at the time I was going by coach for Introvert. I ended up getting rid of the whole coaching thing. And we just kind of maintained a friendship. We collaborated on a couple of different challenges for introverts. We worked really well together. And I had been contemplating starting a podcast last summer. And around that time, Jay called me and said, "Hey, I want to do a podcast. Are you interested?" And before he even finished with the question, I was like, "Yep, let's do it." So that's kind of how it went. Yeah. Did I get everything?
Yeah, and it's funny because that last part.
You tell it so much better. See, this is why I always give it to you.
It's funny because the last part about you answering the question before I even asked it, I actually told Melissa that offline, and that's exactly how it happened. But you're right. We definitely work together. We're working together well, and I wanted to do a podcast, but I wanted to have a podcast with someone that I've had great conversations with. I didn't really want to just do one where I'm kind of talking into the void. Not that I couldn't, but that's just not where I first saw it. So I wasn't, and I still am thankful that Steph said yes, because she was really the one that she was the first person that came to mind when I wanted to do this podcast. So I'm happy that turned out the way it did. And yeah, we've been rocking out for over a year now.
I know. Yeah. I was just talking to Jay earlier because I saw that you guys have 43 episodes, and I was like, oh my god, I could barely do however many. I think I only released like 20 or something every season. And I was like, man, that's a lot. 43. Yeah. So congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah. And, like at the time of like us recording this, we actually are taking a summer break. So for like 2 weeks.
Nice.
But like every once in a while, we just are like, you know what? We've released enough recently. Let's just take a break. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just we're tired. So
you got to recharge.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you ever feel like you run out of stuff to say?
No, I feel like there's so much we haven't like covered.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think that's kind of the point of our podcast is like, yeah, we definitely want to. It's more to people who happen to be introverts talking as opposed to us really just talking only about introversion. I mean, it's definitely an important part of our podcast, but we definitely want to talk about other things because introverts are multifaceted and we can talk about any and everything. It's just we'll have to go recharge afterwards. So it's really about looking at the world, talking about the world, and everything in it through the eyes of two introverts, and even our perspectives are different. I always say Steph's a lot more outgoing than I am, but we're both introverted. And I think having that dynamic, we're showing people that introverts aren't all just one thing. We're not all just like a bunch of depressed mutes. Like it's it's like, and I think we're doing a good job at showing that. And I think a lot of the feedback that we receive speaks to that. Not just from extroverts, but from fellow introverts, who ask us about introversion. And I'm not an expert anyway, but I feel comfortable talking about my experience as an introvert.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about doing the podcast. It's like it's from our perspective, and the topic can be anything, but our thought processes are kind of similar. Like everything you guys are saying is like I feel like I've said it before too, or like had the same mindset or something like that. And so, because that's kind of where my podcast is now. It's like it's first started off talking about introverts and introversion and different topics about introverts, but then not gonna lie, it got kind of boring for me. There's only so much you could talk about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you can only say so much, and it's kind of repetitive, and other podcasts already did it. So that's why, like nowadays, it's more like just whatever topic we want to talk about is what we talk about, and the audience is getting it from an introvert's perspective. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's some episodes where I don't even feel like the word introvert gets mentioned more than a couple of times. Like, other than us saying the name of the podcast. Like, it's like, we don't, everybody knows that we're introverted. Yay. Like, let's talk about something else.
Yeah. That's funny.
And I think, at least for me, tell me if you feel the same way and stuff. I feel like this podcast has kind of helped me get more comfortable getting out of my comfort zone. Like I've never talked so much in my life, and it's okay. Like I actually, I look forward to recording these podcasts. I don't look at it as talking. I look at it as a podcast, and it's fun.
It's like journaling.
Yeah.
For the whole internet to hear.
Yeah, exactly. But I do have to say, Jay, like it's really nice seeing you talk because I'm like kind of recollecting when we did ours. Because I know you were like super nervous and was kind of quiet, and it took a little bit to warm up to get the episode going. But you look like you're in your element. You're like having fun. You're talking a lot. You have a lot to say, and I like it. It's nice.
I appreciate it.
That's a big compliment. I love
that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was nervous as hell because like I never done a podcast. I don't know what podcast etiquette was. Like I didn't know. I think everyone sees people talking on it, and you think you can do it. Then you get there, and I was like, oh, I gotta keep talking and keep and it's that back and forth. But you're right. Once you kind of get used to it and get in a rhythm, it becomes a lot easier.
You kind of forget the mic is there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm definitely appreciative of the fact that I think you understood that, Melissa, and like you did a very good job of like kind of helping me ease into it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah. Do you guys I feel like this is my podcast.
No, that's okay. You're making our lives easier,
Yeah.
We always like being interviewed on our own podcast. It's cool.
We love it.
We love it.
So that was going to be my questions. Like, do you guys, what do you like? Do you like asking the questions and listening? Or do you like when your guests ask you guys questions and then you answer? Like, which side, the interviewer or the interviewee?
So I hate being interviewed formally. Like, hate it. Yeah. It's so uncomfortable. It doesn't feel like a real conversation. So like even in job interviews, I've been known to like transform an interview into just a conversation with the recruiter. And that's always been what works for me. Like I hijack it. I'm like, no, this is not an interview, this is a conversation. But I think because I don't like being like interviewed, it just feels like, we're not in an interrogation room right now. I'd rather just like have a back and forth conversation, and in a back and forth conversation, you ask questions, you listen, and it doesn't matter who's the host and who's the guest. Like we just all are curious and we ask questions of each other as they come up.
Yeah. I guess for me, I do prefer to be asked questions, questions that make me think.
Wow, what a duo!
No, because I'm the same way. Like in an interview, I'd rather turn it into a conversation. Like I agree. I don't like interviews. I actually want to have a back and forth, but I know that I can listen well. I know that I can ask questions. But I don't necessarily want to be the one burdened with having to do that. So I actually like when folks ask thoughtful questions. One, because it's thoughtful, but also it puts me in a position where I actually have to think and actually like I'm more in my element where I can actually think of something to say, and from there we're able to have a decent conversation. So I don't mind. I actually like when our guests or whoever ask questions, because it also shows that they're actually listening, that they're not just going through the motions and just talk. It's like they're not just waiting for me to say, okay, so what about this? And then how you feel about this? Like they're actually involved in this. Like, I'm not just, I'm happy that we never been here, but I've seen some interviews where it's like, you're just kind of talking to a wall, and I was like, it's. I never want to go through that. So I like it when our guests or people ask me questions.
Yeah, I think. What about you? Yeah, so I think I like the back and forth. I like the conversation. I think some of the best episodes are ones where you don't even know who the host is. Like if you didn't know the podcast, you wouldn't know who the host is, because like. There's been some episodes, because I used to do the whole Pod Match thing. I don't know if you guys heard of that. It's like
I keep thinking about that.
Yeah, what did I refer to as like Tinder for podcasters, because you can have a profile for podcasters and a profile as a guest. So I had both, so I could do both. The problem with that though is that I did get a lot of guests. Like I had one season, I think it's not. I can't remember anymore, but like they were all Pod Match guests, and some of them are great conversations back and forth. I was asking questions, they were asking questions, a real conversation. But there were some where like I would ask a question and they would answer it, but then we're like going on to the next question, and so I'm having to like scramble, because I only make a little bit of notes. I don't like do a full on script or anything.
She's more organized than us.
Yeah, but it's just so boring, and like it's not fun to listen to if all I'm doing is just asking questions, but you're not really starting a conversation with me. And
right, like this is my podcast. Like you're no, I'm kidding. I want to talk about myself. I'm just kidding. No, but I agree. It's so awkward. And then like they just like I've had it where they just like sit there staring at you because I have actually 2 other podcasts. And for the most part, we've gotten like very good guests. We vet them pretty well. We had 1 or 2 guests where it was just like very like they wanted us to ask questions, and it was just very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But I like when it's a conversation and everybody's engaged and interested, and yeah.
I think for me a big thing is, you know, we definitely do vet our guests, but it's like if I wouldn't.
Well, now we do.
Now we do.
We learned our lesson.
We kind of had
times.
Yes, but I think for the most part, we choose guests that either one of us would have a conversation offline with. And to me, I think that's important. Like, if I would never speak to you outside of this, like, why are you here?
Right. I don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah, I mean, like, to me, that's that's important because like I look at this podcast as kind of it's not separate from my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's an extension of kind of who I am. So like, if I wouldn't talk to you in one-on-one in a setting, then I don't know why I would talk to you here. At that point, it's just business, and I want to get to the point where we're making money off of this, but it's like, it's not just business for me,
Yeah, and it has to be fun.
Look at me being all introspective on a Friday.
Love it.
Yeah. Oh, I just had a brain fart.
Oh, wow. We just all went full introvert. So we're like, oh.
That's so funny.
Introvert.
But you know what? It's like not awkward when that happens amongst other introverts. It's like, okay, we all just happen to like our little mini recharge window just happened to sync up at the exact same time.
That's
so
funny.
Like it may come off as awkward to listeners, but like we were all just kind of like listening. Yeah.
Listen. It's called the Stay Introverted Podcast for a reason. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there might be silences here and there. It's funny that you brought that up though, because I saw this reel on Instagram where what was it? Like some like relationship advice kind of thing, or relationship kind of. Yeah, I was kind of. Well, but like they said something about like if you have to, or if you drive silent in the car with your spouse, then something's wrong. Like if your drives together, like there's no conversation, something's wrong. And I was like, what? Because
I honestly would never take relationship advice from that person ever.
Yeah, I was like, that's the weirdest thing. Like they said, it's like a red flag or something. But there are times literally where my husband and I will just be in the car, just going on a nice drive, and we won't even have music on, and we don't even talk. But we are just in our presence. Like we like being in our presence. Like we don't have to talk. So I thought that was such a weird thing.
It's nonsense.
I know. It's like I was like, "Are you certified? Who is this?
Are you okay?
Yeah, there's something wrong.
Who hurt you, sir? Like, or man?
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Even with friends, I mean, even amongst friends, like we can just like walk in silence, like hang out in silence, and it's like I just like being in your company. You don't have to always fill everything with random words just because we're both here. Like that's weird.
Yeah, I actually think the hallmark of a good friendship or relationship is
any ship
is when you can just have be around each other and not say anything and it be fine.
Be alone together.
Yeah. Like, obviously, if you never say anything, that might be an issue. But a car ride and you don't say anything, Okay.
I'm so triggered by that. Like,
I
wow.
know. I was like, this pissed me right off. It's like, excuse me.
Yeah. Like some things like I see on TikTok, or not on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. On Instagram or Threads or whatever, and like I'm like really, I feel called out. I'm like, oh, that really triggers me. Like this one, I'm just like, that's just stupid.
Yeah.
Like no.
Yeah, I think it was an extrovert. No offense to extroverts, but
extroverts are funny. Like they think they can speak for other people, particularly people who are not extroverts. And I actually I was thinking of this on a previous episode that we did stuff, but I actually want to ask you here because we all three of us have spoken in some way, shape, or form about getting out of our comfort zones. And I see introverts out there where we're managers, we're entrepreneurs, podcast hosts. We're doing the damn thing, and a lot of that involves getting out of our comfort zone. So I think, and it may not be a hot take, but I think introverts are actually better at getting out of their comfort zones than extroverts are. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I feel like, I don't know if we're better, but I think we don't have a choice.
Yeah,
yeah, like I feel like we are in a very extroverted centered like society, especially like the move from blue collar work to white collar work. We have to advertise for each other or for ourselves. Like, you have to be your own salesperson and have your own sales pitch for jobs, and you have to fight for people to listen to you in meetings and to like so it's so I don't know. I mean, we're probably just better by default because we have to do it when we don't really have a choice. So that's my answer. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great question. I feel like I get in my way so much, my own way. So I feel like getting out of my comfort zone. Wow, why can I like not talk? All of a sudden. I get in my own way so often, and like I think getting out of my comfort zone for me is just like moving myself out of my own way. If that makes sense. Like it's not really necessarily other people that are the problem. I'm the problem. And I overthink everything because that's really my biggest barrier. I think
so you're saying like
to not overthink is
like doing it for yourself, like to make yourself better. I don't know if better is the right word, but improve yourself.
It's like every little thing. I'm like I overthink it, and like the only way for me to like do the thing is to turn my brain off, which, as we've established many times on this podcast, that's like telling myself to not breathe. I can't just turn off the overthinking button. Like it doesn't work like that. It's just on at all times.
Same.
I don't know if that answered your question, but
I think so.
Okay, cool. If you say so.
I think so because
you asked the question.
Yeah. I think you're both spot on. I think you're right. Unless I think we find ourselves more in a position where we have to get outside of our comfort zones. But we do them. We do it. And like I said before, I see so many of us out here succeeding in this extroverted world. Leaders, managers, presidents, entrepreneurs, podcast hosts, and it's like just trying to get an extrovert to shut up is like the end of the world for them. And we're out here doing all these other things. It's like you can't be quiet for 5 minutes. Okay.
I do have sympathy though for extroverts because as an and how do I explain this? So like as an introvert, like when I'm in a social gathering or if I'm too socialized, over socialized, it doesn't make me depressed or sad or anything like that. It just makes me tired and I just need to recharge. Whereas I've noticed that, some of my extroverted friends or extroverted family members, they got really depressed during the pandemic because they've never had to be by themselves for this long and never had to experience that. But if the roles were reversed, I wouldn't get to that state because it's, I'm fine being alone and I'm fine being with people. I just get tired. But I did notice that, I think so maybe there is some truth to we can do it better as far as having to do extrovert tasks, because for them it's they really need that, they need people, they need all that. And if you put them by themselves for too long, that really messes with their psyche.
They'll lose their shit. That's what happens. It's just let their shit. It's
that's so funny,
dude. You really just can't sit here for a while. No, I can't. All right, and you're right. I have heard those same stories about some of my extroverted friends just bouncing off the walls and their
cabin fever. Yeah,
and their introverted counterparts are like this. What is wrong with you? Or the introverts in the house can't get any sort of peace because now that they're the focus of the extroverts because they can't go anywhere.
Yeah. So it's interesting for me because even though I am an introvert, I feel like during my little burst of energy, so I have very low energy, very limited energy, but every once in a while during my energy burst, I become extroverted. So I'm an extroverted introvert, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I'm bouncing off the walls, I can't sit still, I need to be around people, I want to talk. And it's always so unexpected and it comes out of nowhere. But I feel empathize with extroverts in that way. I'm oh, you guys like this all the time? Jesus, I hate this.
I know, we get it quarterly or something. Yeah. They get it every day or something.
Right. I get it probably at least once or twice a week. I'm the Energizer Bunny. I want to hang out with people. And it's always at 2:00 in the morning, when no one's around. Sometimes I'll get it at more convenient times when I can actually make that wish come true. But I can't imagine being that 24/7.
So is this the introverted I guess the introverted version of the Zoomies?
Yeah, it's the Zoomies. Yes, exactly.
The introverted Zoomies. All right.
Yeah, that's perfect. That should be the title of the episode.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, you laugh, but as I always say, these are not episodes. These are staff meetings. So we get work done when we talk as well. So you never know. That might be the title.
Yeah. I love it.
Brainstorming.
Might end up on a T-shirt.
Yeah,
that too. Many of our titles have been born on the episode preceding it, so it works out.
Yeah. Just tag me if you ever put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah,
I might.
Give me some street cred.
I love it.
That's funny. That would be. I'd buy that shirt.
I'm not thinking of how I want to put it on a shirt. So thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad I could help.
Yeah, I mean, is that normal? Do other introverts get the introverted Zoomies?
I think so.
Yeah. I also think that it may manifest differently. I think that we all kind of get that little burst of energy. There are times where I can talk for hours, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with another introvert. I just feel like chatting. You have a bunch of energy. Some others they may feel like going to a party for some reason. But I think it comes out in different ways. I think that's actually a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because if from my researches of introversion at the beginning of my podcast, they do talk about like no one is ever 100% an introvert and no one's 100% extrovert. We're all on the spectrum. And so at the end of the day, we still need people. We still need human interactions. It's just, how much do you need? And for me, it's very little.
Right. Right. I just like, interaction where it's like little effort.
Yeah.
Interaction without effort.
Yeah. I agree. My husband and I were just talking about that. Like we call them, what do we call them? Energy vampires. And these are like the people who are your friends or family members that like, you need to be ready to hang out with them. Like you have to like reserve your energy because they just use all of it up. But there's some people where it's just easy. It's just so easy, low effort, little to no effort. Like I have my friend, Bailey, who she's on my podcast a lot nowadays. But like we can just be at her place together. Like we've spent a day where she was just doing chores in her house and I was just laying on the couch with her dogs watching TV. And like we just like to be in their presence. Yeah. Like very, low effort. And sometimes those are the best kinds to hang out.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love hangouts like that where you don't have to like really try. You don't have to.
Yeah, I think energy vampires are definitely a thing as well. I also think it's not just hanging out with them. I think it's just you have to be ready to deal with them in like in any way. Like even I had a friend. We had a falling out recently, but part of that is because that person is looking back now an energy vampire, and it's like this person would call, and it's like if I wasn't in this, I had to be in a space to like talk to this person because like we could talk for 2 or 3 hours, but that's 2 or 3 hours of energy. Hey, friend of the show.
Oh.
Speaking of energy vampires, he's eating something. So, what is in your mouth?
Oh my goodness!
This is gnocchi.
Hello, gnocchi. But yeah, I realized that I had to be in the proper headspace or proper energy space to be able to talk with this person and they would call like random times. So it's like it's never predictable. So it's like if I was going to pick up the phone, I had to be okay with knowing that whatever work I had to do or whatever I had to do after that was not getting done or getting pushed out hours. So it's energy vampires are definitely a real thing, and it's in any way you deal with them, you have to be prepared to deal with them.
Yeah, and a lot of times they're expecting you to match their energy.
Yes.
And my energy level is very
care as much as they do.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm like, I only have so many cares or so many fucks to give, and I don't care as much as you do. Sorry.
Yeah, it's very finite and it's very special.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't just get handed out to everybody.
Exactly.
Gotta ration out the fucks. Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There you go. That's another good T-shirt.
Yes.
Yeah. Love. Wow, I can't believe a whole hour has gone by.
Oh, has it been an hour?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it has. Wow.
I know. This is so fun.
Funny stuff.
How do you know?
Because you start talking about the time.
Yeah, every time. Yeah.
Every time.
I should have a sign that I can wave, like towards like when I get hungry. To,
like a flag. Your hunger flag.
The hunger flag. I'm very hungry. I didn't have like a big lunch today, but anyway, this has been a lot of fun, and I would love to get you back on here to talk more about introverted Zoomies and all the other things.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I'd love to have you guys on my podcast once I figure that out.
Definitely.
We would love to. But I guess, do you have any like parting wisdom, words, thoughts to share? And then if you want to plug your podcast and whatever you've got going on, we'd love to have you do that too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, just, thanks. I'm just happy to be on. I got really excited when Jay messaged me on Instagram, and I was like, oh my God, because I don't go on Instagram very often. So I don't know what's going on. And I was like, oh my God, you started a podcast.
That's awesome.
But yeah, just thank you. I had a lot of fun. I love doing these. I'm happy to go on and come on again. And then once I figure out my, my stuff, I'll definitely have you guys on too. But yeah, for everyone that, enjoyed this and liked me talking and want to hear more of my voice, I do have the Talkative Introvert Podcast. It's on all the platforms. So just Google it and then you'll find it, I'm sure. Hopefully no one else has the same title.
Oh no, I know. I literally, with one of my podcasts, we found out later that I'm like, oh, we didn't even check. This is a mistake. But I bet you yours is first.
Yeah, I hope so. Someone did try to steal it. Yeah. Well, so I'm the Talkative Introvert, and that person was just Talkative Introvert, and they even copied my bio, and they tweaked it a little bit and put it as theirs. Yeah, I checked it. It's gone now, but I was like, excuse me.
Right. Yeah, rude.
How awful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, go be sure to listen to the Talkative Introvert, and let's make sure that she is the top #1 result on Google by giving her a rating and a review.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And speaking of rating and reviews, be sure to give ours a rating and review too. While you're at it. But thank you so much, Melissa. It is a pleasure to have you. And thank you all for listening to this episode of the Introverted Podcast. Again, if you love this episode, be sure to rate us, review us, follow us on all the platforms. And yeah, don't forget to pop into our DMs and say what you loved about the episode.
All right, folks. We'll catch you next time. Stay introverted, y'all.
Bye.